And so, honored to be the moderator for such a distinguished panel of thought leaders doing great things and leading great programs, and also above and beyond what they're doing in their professional capacities. Many of these folks will also get into some of the things that they do just because it's the right thing to do, right? And they want to make a difference. So we'll touch on a number of different perspectives and different approaches to tackling this problem. And so, with that said, consistent with the nature and the abstract of the panel, there are a number of government-led programs that we know are putting a dent in the diversity gap. And so what I'll ask each of our esteemed panelists to do is to first introduce themselves and their organizations a little bit, so we all get familiar with who's presenting. I know you guys have their bios; it's been on their website. But I'll ask each panelist to do a quick intro, and then we'll seg to government-led programs that are chipping away at the divide. So we'll start with Renee on my closest right here. So Renee.
Good afternoon, everyone. We can do a little bit better. I said those of us in technology don't talk. Let's show them that we talk. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Great. That's better. So my name is Renee Foyne. I'm the Executive Director of the Cyber Skills Management Support Initiative for the Department of Homeland Security. I have been in that role since 2012. How did I come to be in that role? It's a kind of funny story because my background is in IT engineering. So I was a geeky girl long before it was cool to be a geeky girl. Have always enjoyed technology, have spent my entire career in that space. And prior to taking on this role, I had spent some time in the human capital area trying to help them with some of their technology challenges. And so when the Deputy Secretary said, we need to stand up a group that can focus head down on some of the challenges that the department is facing, we need to find someone who can understand technology, but also understand the federal government human capital. And so I looked around and I said, well, hey, that might be me. So that's how I stumbled into this role. And I am so thankful that I have spent those years on the technology side and now am able to try to help from a workforce perspective. And not only understanding the technical challenges that a hiring manager faces, but also understanding those federal government human capital rules. When our organization was stood up, we were stood up to focus on the hiring issues that you face, the recruitment issues that you face, as well as the training, because after you get the workforce, you have to figure out how you want to keep the workforce. And then the part that I'm really passionate about is growing and expanding the pipeline of talent coming into the department. That's a part that I thought would be easy, but it faces me each day as a challenge. And I'll talk a little bit more about how we're tackling that challenge a little bit.
Talk about NICE today. And it's really a little ironic to be on the government panel, both because I'm a relatively new federal government employee, as well as the fact that NICE is a public-private partnership. And by very nature of the name National Initiative, it's not a federal program, it's not a federal government program, but it's really intended to be a partnership with academia, industry, and government. In fact, I would maintain that the investments and the commitment and the outcomes are even greater and more substantial from academia and industry than they are from what the federal government puts into it. So we are in the process of developing a national strategy that is in the process of collecting input and feedback from both the academia, the private sector, nonprofit organizations, and others, so that we can be working on this together. As I was thinking about just some brief remarks today, and particularly with the topic of how to tackle this challenge, the acronym that occurred to me is that now is the time to really pay serious attention to this. There's been no greater time than now in terms of the demand for cybersecurity, whether it's in the federal government, the private sector, universities, nonprofit organizations. Everyone has their cybersecurity challenges and need a workforce to help support it. Ironically, when you look at the representation, particularly of women, but even of other underrepresented populations, they are increasingly in the majority in our colleges and universities. In fact, women have surpassed men as the majority of students, and yet we have this underrepresentation problem in both cybersecurity as well as STEM generally. But given the challenges in cybersecurity and the complexity, there's no greater time than now for a diverse set of thought leaders and backgrounds and experiences to tackle this. And those diverse backgrounds come from the very type of diversity that are represented by gender, by ethnic minority status, veteran status, and the like. And so let me just quickly say 3 things about that acronym now. First of all, the N for me is really about networking, and not networking in the technical sense, but networking in the personal and professional sense. You know, quite frankly, as a white male, as a Caucasian, my natural tendency is to network with people who are like me. And I'm in the process of building out a NICE staff and hiring people, and I have to very intentionally go and meet people who are different than me so that I can build a staff that's diverse. Similarly, if you're a job seeker or somebody trying to enter the field of cybersecurity, you need to network. And I say that because you need to spend as much time working on connections and networks as you do filling out that resume, because I'm just as impacted by somebody I meet interpersonally as that resume I receive in the mail. So, you know, happy to say more about that later, but I'm firmly believing that for employers, for job seekers, and even educational institutions, this notion of human networking is really important. The O stands for opportunity, and it's not just the equal opportunity in employment and education and all those things we've historically paid attention to, but it's really the intentional steps that we take to make a difference, to make a statement, to show our commitment to this area. And I'll just give you a couple examples that speak to my personal experience. So all of you go to conferences and events where we have panels such as this, and in the IT field, especially the cybersecurity field, it's really easy to come up with a panel of all white males to fill the front of a room in a conference and facility. And I really challenge all of us, myself included, when we're doing public conferences and events and panels, to work very hard to intentionally trying to represent the diversity so that people in the audience can see, oh, there is opportunity for me in this field. There is a role model. There is somebody who comes from the same type of background or experience that I represent. Maybe a little less publicly are the kind of committees or the teams that we develop. You know, I'm currently actively putting together committees and task force and program committees, and my challenge to every leader of that team is first and foremost for the leadership to be diverse, but secondly, the communities that are represented to be diverse. So it really signals confidence, it signals credibility, and it signals commitment, and I think that's important for us to take away in terms of opportunity.
So Rodney,
Yeah.
I'm going to pause you right there. I know you're on the O, but I thought my intro was long.
So my W
And that's why I didn't stop. I mean, passionately, he was on a roll. I hate to interject, but I just want to get through the intros and we'll come back. Or do you want to finish the W?
The W is workforce readiness, and I can say more later, but NICE has a national cybersecurity workforce framework. There really is a way to help both job seekers as well as employers to structure a workforce around cybersecurity.
Awesome. Thanks, Rodney. Thanks, Rodney. He just did the whole panel. Okay, pack it up. Okay, we're done. Jeremy, please.
Thank you very much. I have to thank Rodney because since he ran over, he covered many of the topics I was going to cover. Now I don't. He was the one who got blamed for it. So I'm Jeremy Epstein with the National Science Foundation. My business card is as complicated as yours, but I'll mention that I lead the Secure and Trustworthy Cyberspace Program. The acronym isn't as good as NICE, but the same SATC for Secure and Trustworthy Cyberspace is also Sex and the City, which is a more fun way to remember it. So for those of you who are fans of that TV show. So the National Science Foundation has a couple of areas that we fund research, which is the part that I lead, cybersecurity research. My program is about $75 million a year in research funding. We have about 700 research projects, about 1,000 professors, about 2,000 graduate students. It's the biggest unclassified cybersecurity research program in the world. Very interesting topics, and I could talk all day about that, but I won't because I don't want to get the hook. The other part of the program is the Scholarship for Service program that many of you are probably familiar with, thanks to generous funding from Congress on both sides, both the SATC side and the Scholarship for Service program. We fund hundreds of students studying cybersecurity in universities all over the country. The deal is that for every year you get scholarship support, you agree to serve in a paid position in the government after graduation for an equal number of years. So if you get 3 years of support, you work for 3 years, and after that you're free to stay in the government or get another job. And if you don't pay back, it's sort of like ROTC, you have to pay back the money if you don't serve. So these are areas that help all students, regardless of gender, regardless of race or ethnicity. In addition, taking off my official hat as an NSF person, about 5 years ago I started a program called the Scholarship for Women Studying Information Security. This is something I personally feel very strongly about. We need to address the diversity for the reasons that Rodney and Renee mentioned, and I'm sure that Teresa will also mention, and with funding from a nonprofit where I sit on the board, plus Hewlett-Packard, we've been giving about 15 to 20 scholarships per year to women studying cybersecurity, and I'm hoping to grow that. And I guess I should finally say that I'm coming to the end of my term. I have a 4-year term appointment at the National Science Foundation. If you want my job, come talk to me. We are looking for someone who wants to lead the biggest unclassified research program in cybersecurity in the world. It's a fascinating job, and I'd love to have one of you take over and lead the charge going forward. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thanks so much, Sarah.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Teresa Grfin, Stein. I'm the Inspector General of the House of Representatives. So this is my backyard, right? I've been in the IG community for about 24 years, 18 of which have been here at the House. A lot of people may, for those of you who actually work at the House, may be quite surprised that we have an IG, right? But actually, that's almost intentional. It's a very behind, well, first let me start off by how we're appointed. The Inspector General position, I've actually been the IG for the last 6 years, and the IG position here at the House is handled like no other in the entire U.S. government. It's handled with a lot of it's very deliberate to make sure that it's nonpartisan. And so how it's handled is that the majority leader, minority leader, and speaker all work together to come up and agree and appoint an inspector general. If you've watched the news and say, I don't know, the last 30, 40 years, it's hard to get these guys to agree to anything, right? So the fact that they can agree to something like that unanimously shows the commitment that they have to make sure that it remains nonpartisan. And so in the IG's office here at the House, we do all the traditional things that you would think of with an IG office, a financial statement audit. We do criminal investigations. We do a lot of performance audits. But I think a lot of the value that we provide is we do a lot of behind-the-scenes cybersecurity assessments. We work hand in hand with the CIO of the House. We work with the CISO of the House. As you can imagine, Congress is under daily attack, whether it's a teenager with a laptop or whether it's somebody who is a hacktivist or a nation-state-sponsored type of hacker. And so a lot of the work that we do is very behind the scenes, but it's very important work, and I'm happy that we're able to do that. When Devin had said, hey, can you talk about the big programs you're doing at the House? Well, I have 24 people in my office, so we don't have a big sort of initiative where we're actually rolling it out government-wide. But we've actually taken it on sort of this is like a personal cause thing for me. This is something that I hold very personally important, is reaching out to people, whether it's little kids at the K through 12 level, all the way on up through adults, and talking about the importance of cybersecurity and talking about how this is a national threat. This is a team, this is something that's not going to be solved by government, industry, or academia working individually. This is a team sport. All of us have a role in this. And so one of the things we're hearing all the statistics about women, underrepresentation, minority underrepresentation, imagine going, it's like going into battle with only using half of your brain power. I mean, there's an entire untapped resource out there that we need to make sure that we tap into, because this is a national imperative.
Appreciate it.